Hey, how's it going, everybody? Scott Spreitzer here. He is Raphael Esparza. We are DocSports.com's In the Paint. Coming to you every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern throughout the college basketball season. I believe this is number 5 or something, the show. And normally we got a 3-man team, but we're the 2-man crew tonight, Raphael and myself. And we'll take you through everything we're going to talk about, including money shots, which are our best bets on the show coming up at the end. A lot of that in between. We're going to talk about some big games going on this upcoming week in college baskets. But before we get to all of that, real quick note, if you've yet to become a member at DocSports.com, just want to give it a trial run, click on the link below the video, get yourself set up for a free $60 account, and then you can use those free $60 on any of our daily packages. Basically, it's a great way to give DocSports.com a trial run if you've not yet been a member. Raphael, looking good, my man. I got to get a little bit of sun, match your tan a little bit. But I wanted to say that, listen, I saw some big games last week, and I watched a lot of college baskets with, just a handful of college football games on the card. And man, I learned a lot. I wanted to talk about what did we learn this week. And the first thing I wanted to ask you about is the Kansas Jayhawks. And is there anything long-term wrong with this team? I'm pretty positive Bill Self will fix things and getting things going, but he got blown out, his team, by a struggling Creighton basketball team. He followed a 9-point loss with Missouri, his very next outing. They go out and they lose to Missouri by 9 on Sunday, when both of those teams, Creighton and Mizzou, were power rated outside of the top 50. I got a couple of thoughts on what's going on, what they'll do to fix these things, but I wanted to hear what you thought first.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch that game, especially against Creighton, where they just were ice cold from shooting the ball. They dropped 9 spots from the AP with back-to-back losses, you said, to Creighton and to Mizzou. But let's think about it. If you watch that game, first game against Mizzou, 8 for 23 from three-point land. This next game, the loss against Creighton, 8 for 23 from three-point land. You know what their free throws? They shot no free throws in almost the whole game. Against Creighton, they went 5 for 8 for the free throw line. You ain't going to win games when you're only at the free throw stripe 8 times in a game. Stop jacking up threes when you're ice cold. Well, you know what? Our show is called In the Paint. We'll go inside to the paint. Maybe get some freebies and stuff like that. I just don't understand their type of play. And I know that's what the kids, I'm calling you guys kids, like to play in college basketball, shooting the jack up threes. We don't even see dunks anymore as much. Everyone just wants to shoot the 3 ball. And I think that's the problem with Kansas. They're not going inside. They're not going in the paint. They didn't even have any good fast break points against Creighton. They were just stagnant. If they did have a fast break point, they would stop at the 3-point line and jack one up. So when you shoot 16 for 46 in 2 games from 3-point line, you're not going to win games.
I've got a little internet service issue here. We're going live. So just deal with that for me, folks, for a little bit. Once in a while, I might cut out. But we are live, as I mentioned. So if you want to comment, definitely do so. But, Raphael, I saw the same thing. That's why I was giving you the thumbs up, man. It was like, get to the free throw line. And what's going on with Hunter Dickinson, the transfer from Michigan State a couple of years ago? He was completely shut down by Creighton. He finished the game with 2 field goal attempts, talking about not getting in the paint. He took 11 shots against Mizzou, but a grand total of 3 free throw attempts in the 2 games combined. And in fact, Kansas was outshot at the free throw line by those 2 teams, 48-19 combined. It's crazy. Dickinson has to toughen up. Others need to drive the paint. They've got the talent to do it, draw fouls. A lot of standing around right now, and as you said, just feeling comfortable enough to hoist up threes when they've got to start driving the paint and draw PFs and get to that free throw line. I was looking at their overall ratio, free throw attempts to field goal attempts, and this Kansas team, how about 361st out of 364 college basketball teams when it comes to free throw attempt to field goal attempt ratio, which is just crazy for a team with this talent and at this caliber to not drive the paint the way they should and draw some PFs. So listen, I believe that's going to change this week against NC State. I think this is one of those things where it happened twice, which was at least one more than I thought it would at this point of the season for a Kansas team as talented as this. But I think it's so obvious of what they got to do that they get it right up against NC State this weekend. And I'll be really surprised, Raphael, if they're not more aggressive and driving the paint a little bit.
Yeah, because I know South and college fans out there, players watch the show. It's their favorite show to watch on Tuesday. So they're probably going to listen to us and go to the free throw line. Please shoot a free throw. Get a technical free throw. Get a freebie, something. Because, yeah, It was, and I'm a little bit concerned on their bench play, especially in the second half. Seems like they're a little bit deeper in the first half, but then in the second half, if they're not in foul trouble, they're only playing 6 guys. And against the Creighton, they were out of gas with 5 minutes left to go in the game, and I think that's why Creighton took control easily in that second half.
It's kind of funny because I watched the game last week, and I'm thinking, wow, it's like Creighton took a page out of the Nebraska blueprint in denying their big man, Kalkbrenner, and they did the same thing when it came to taking on Kansas and Hunter Dickinson. That's the one thing about McDermott. He learns quickly on things he doesn't know, and we saw it in that game. I wanted to talk about Houston a little bit also because this team has 2 overtime losses to Bama and San Diego State, 5-point loss to Auburn. That's how close they are to 8-0. They deserve a top 10 power rating, even though AP has them 15th in the country right now, which I think is ridiculous. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about Duke and how they were dropped because of one loss from like 3rd to 11th, which was outrageous too, because the power rating showed they still were in the top 5. Raphael, got a question there. I know it's early, but what would you put the line at? Kansas, NC State this Saturday. That comes to us
at home. They're at home. Like I said, Self and them watch the show, so they probably want to come out. Probably about make around that 6-7. I don't know about the total yet because I know NC State had some injuries during the week, and I do believe they're playing, but I just kind of want to make sure that everyone's playing on it. But I'm sure the total will be probably in the mid 150s. But I think Kansas will bounce back. Go to the free throw line, please, Jayhawks.
Well, in the power rating as of right now, if they were playing tonight on a neutral floor, you'd be looking at 7 or 8 in favor of the Kansas Jayhawks in this game. So, and that's the thing. They don't drop far. Teams like Houston and Kansas, if you do a trustworthy set of power ratings. Ken Palm does a great job, obviously, with power ratings, and books have been using his numbers for a long, long time. So anyway, not bad to take a look at his. But as far as Houston is concerned, I'm looking at these games that are coming up, and I see where they were dropped to 15th in the AP. And I love when that happens because it gives us value on that team that has been dropped too far by writers rather than bookmakers or bettors. The one thing I am concerned about with the Houston Cougars, Raphael, is their 2-point shooting because they play the 5th slowest tempo in college basketball. And when you do that against quality opponents, you'd better make your 2s. They drain 3s quite well, but they don't shoot very many per game. It's not a problem against outmanned opposition, but it is tough when you're hitting 46, 47% of your 2s and you're a slow tempo team on top of it when you're up against, next level opposition.
And they struggle at the free throw line. There's a team that does not shoot well on the free throw line. So they shoot poorly in 2s and poorly on free throws. And their defense is still really good, giving up 55 points. But their 3 losses were against 3 tough teams. And those losses, they lost by an average of 73 points a game that they were giving up. So I don't want to say it was a hiccup. I'm a little bit more concerned on Kansas than I am with Houston, because Houston's always going to play their style of play. And their style of play, some people don't like it. Why do you think Virginia was such a good team year after year? Because some people hated playing them because of the style of play. Houston will be all right, but they need to shoot the ball better. You nailed it. They're 2-point shooting. If you can't hit the 2s, then you need to hit 3s, and they can't do either one of them. So I think style of play, they're going to play some ugly games this year if they keep on struggling. We won't be shocked if they hit like a 48-44 type of game.
Apologize there again, Raphael. I'm cutting out a little bit. Either you are or I am. Listen, I wanted to comment on Mo Green and tell him thank you very much. I think it was 8 in 1995. But, one of these days I'm going to do a show about those mid-90s, and we're going to talk about the old Stardust line and the interesting characters we ran into. I mean, we had Joe Frazier on the show. We had Jerry Tarkanian plenty of times on the show. Dan Pastorini, guys like that. So that'll be fun to talk about. I just kind of thought about that with that nice comment from Mo. Midweek matchup. Let's talk about a big game, Raphael, now that we talked a little bit about what we learned. And I think both teams are going to rebound, but I think Kansas is a team that has more of a legit chance of turning this back around into a national title contender. And I wasn't trying to take anything away from the Houston Cougars, but as you mentioned, they're not shooting free throws. They're not shooting well from inside the 3-point line. And a lot of times that's tough to fix quickly throughout the course of the season. Kansas, I think, is just a game plan thing, and they'll be fine this next game against NC State. Midweek matchup, big Thursday game in Iowa City. You got the Iowa Hawkeyes hosting 3rd-ranked Iowa State. Raphael, the Cyclones are on the road, power rated about 5 points better than the Hawkeyes. Your take on this one?
I can't believe no one has played a true road game. Only one of these teams have played a true road game, and we're December 10th right now. So it's going to be very interesting. There's Iowa. They put up 100 points against Jacksonville State their last game. Both teams have been pressing the ball and have fast pace. Normally, Iowa's a slow pace game, but lately they've been pushing the ball, shooting the three ball really well. It's going to be a very, very interesting matchup with this one. I can see both teams stealing. I can see Iowa State stealing this game against Iowa. I'm looking for the Cyclones. I like their play as of late. I think they're going to be something to look for, not for this game on Thursday, but for the rest of the season. They give me something to see. This reminds me of their college football team. No one talked about them, and then all of a sudden, wow, they're really good. The Cyclones in basketball are going to be that type of team. I'm going to be looking out for them this week, but also in weeks past.
Final Four contender, no doubt about it. And I think I was a little bit down, and I mean that relatively speaking, for Hawkeye basketball, even though they're winning most of their games. But I'll tell you what, Iowa's biggest mistake in this one, I think, is going to be the fact that they play up-tempo basketball, Raphael. That falls kind of what into the Cyclones' desired game plan is this year. They can play a deliberate brand, Iowa State, of basketball, or in this case, this season, up-tempo, and they do both extremely well. Under TJ Otzelberger, Iowa State played a deliberate tempo the first 3 years. I went back and looked, 226th, 328th, and 201st in adjusted offensive tempo. He has the talent to kick it up a couple notches this year, and he's done so. Their offensive adjusted efficiency, 112 the first 3 seasons, is way up this year. They're 6th in that metric with the way Coach TJO is coaching this team. They're 10th in that same metric on the defensive end of the floor. And another thing about Iowa that I don't like is their opponents are making 56% of their 2-point field goal attempts right now, and that's not going to help them when they're going up against Iowa State. Kind of funny, Raphael, I know you spent a lot of years here in Las Vegas, and I had a guy ask me the other day, we were talking about the current state of UNLV basketball and barely drawing 4,000 fans in the Thomas and Mack. Now, I came up, in the Tark years, I had already moved out here, and, you were sitting top row unless you were, Steve Wynn, basically, when you were watching, David Robinson or the Sooners or whatever, and they'd fill that place up. 19, 20,000 people. They have scalpers outside of the parking lot, and now they're drawing barely 4,000. And a buddy of mine who's not in our business, he said, what's going on with this team and what's going on? Why didn't they keep TJ Otzelberger? I'm like, good question, because they couldn't pay. And believe it or not, a lot of folks didn't like TJO's style out here. I'm like, what? You don't like being in the Elite Eight? You don't like having a shot to get to the Final Four? And we're seeing the same thing now with the coach in football, in that they just don't either have the funds or want to pay the funds to keep very good coaches in this program. Of course, the football issue is another issue for another show when we talk about some college football bowls on our other shows. But anyway, so are you looking at Iowa State here? Or are you back in Iowa, or are you just kind of waiting to see when this line comes out?
I'm waiting to see if I'm back in Iowa State in this one. The game that impressed me the most when they played Dayton. They didn't cover the game. They won 89-84, but the total was 143. And Dayton's style is a much slower style. And Iowa State took that away from them early and made them push up the tempo and play their style. That game impressed me the most. Again, I know they didn't cover. Don't get a bunch of. They didn't cover that game, but I like the way they reversed the style and made them play their style and made Dayton score 84 points, which is very hard to do because Dayton does not have a high-power offense. That's the game that mostly impressed me. So I'm looking to probably look at the Cyclones when this number comes out.
Good stuff, man. I'm with you on the Cyclones, too. I don't know if it's going to be a premium play yet, but I think I'm going to be in action on this game when it does come out. Let's go behind the counter, everybody. And what we've done, if you're new to this show, is one of the things I've done over the years, in fact, is always had a quality sports book director or sports book manager, odds makers, who've at least had one segment on the shows I've done where we set him up and he knocks them down. We give him games, he gives us lines, and we talk about what we like about those games. And in this case, could have asked for anybody better than Raphael Esparza, who has spent a lot of years out here in Las Vegas behind the counter. I know at the Aria, and still making lines for other books around the country. So let's go behind the counter, Raphael. Let's talk about a couple of games. First up, I wanted to talk about AP's new #1 basketball team, the Tennessee Volunteers. They're going to be in Champaign, Illinois this week. Your line and your thoughts on this game. Illinois is a tough out.
Yeah, Illinois is a tough out, but I love this Tennessee Vols team. Not only are they good in baseball, not only are they good in football, but not only now they're good in college basketball. So if you want to win ships, I guess you go to Tennessee and wear that orange because they've been phenomenal. All 8 straight wins have been by double digits. That's ridiculous how they've been playing some basketball. I'm going to wait to watch the game when we're taping this game on Tuesday. They're playing Tuesday night. I want to see how they come out. Can they make it 9 straight double digits on there? This team plays outstanding three-point shooting defense. They're not allowing that many open threes. They're really tough at the arc. So I like this way the way he played defense, because defense makes your offense play better, and that's what they do the best. So I like this team, Tennessee. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I made this number like around Tennessee -3 against Illinois. Again, let's wait till these games happen Tuesday, because anything can happen, injuries or whatever. I'm more interested in the total. Illinois, we all know they like to run and speed the pace up. Their pace is really, really fast in the Big Ten. Total will probably be like around 147, 149. It's going to be very interesting. I'm excited to watch this game.
Yeah, both teams are in action tonight, by the way, Tuesday night. And, Tennessee's playing Miami. Larenega's squad is struggling so far this year. I think they'll be able to get past Miami, whether they cover or not is a different
15-point favorites, I think they are tonight.
Yeah, I left it alone. Yeah, I had to leave it alone.
Too.
And then Illinois is taking on Wisconsin. So, it's a situation where you sit, you wait, you see how each team does. There's a lot of times like, okay, if I have my druthers, I would love to see Tennessee get knocked off outright in this game and see Illinois win tonight. And then I'd really start looking at maybe being on Tennessee this weekend when they go to Champaign. The other game I wanted to ask you about was Gonzaga and UConn. They're hooking up at Madison Square Garden on Saturday. What's your take on this game?
I mean, the Zags a small favorite. Probably like open up around 3. Just the way, if UConn, I mean, I know they won their last game. UConn did beating. They were on the road. I can't remember who they beat. Was it Texas that they won their last game? Yeah, they beat Texas at Texas. If they didn't win that game, they still would have been struggling coming forward. Sure, Gonzaga would have probably been like a 4 or 5 point favorite if they would have lost that game against Texas. I'm more interested in the total. The total is probably going to be in the mid-60s, probably like 160, 161. And Gonzaga, we know they're going to play a fast pace. Look at how they played against Kentucky a couple of days ago. The pace was really fast, especially in the second half. Gonzaga is a very deep team. They're willing to put out 8, 9 guys on there and tire you like they did against Kentucky. Gonzaga ran out of gas in overtime of play. So this is going to be very interesting. I'm more focused on the total in this one, but I think Gonzaga will be like a 2, 3 point favorite the way Connecticut has been playing. Especially, this is a true road game, and Connecticut has not looked well on the road.
It's funny because the Zags, you see a lot of these top-notch teams that have Elite Eight, maybe even Final Four, potential, and they play a ton of home games or some neutral site games and mixed in with a ton of. I mean, the Zags have been everywhere. They've been zigzagging all over the country. I mean, every time I turn them on, there's somewhere else in the country piling up the mileage. They haven't been home in nearly a month. They were in Seattle last week against Kentucky, the overtime game, kind of home. They blew an 18-point lead, by the way, to the Wildcats, and blew a double-digit lead in an overtime loss to West Virginia earlier this season. They went ice cold from deep against Kentucky, yet kept shooting those 3 balls and kept missing them. Real bad night. And that's scary for Zag backers because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago after the Maui Classic. UConn's pick-and-roll defense was not performing well, and that's why they lost 3 straight games in Maui. But that's starting to change a little bit, and we've seen them play a better brand of pick and roll, and we knew they would. Once against Hurley, got his troops some time, some action in the practice facility rather than just playing games. We knew they'd get back on track. So I think this is a very interesting game at MSG, and I'm going to lean slightly right now to UConn. I hold the right to change my mind by the time the weekend rolls around. But for now, I'm going to go with UConn in this particular game. Little something we've been talking about doing for the first few weeks is under the radar game of the week. And you know what I like to do, Raphael, and I know you do too. You handicap all the games as I do each and every night. And I love to look for teams that are playing extremely well, winning their basketball games, but yet nobody really talks about them. They're outside the top 40, the top 50 when it comes to power ratings, but yet they just keep winning basketball games. And a lot of times what I like to do is say, okay, this team's 8-0, this team's 8-0, but one of the teams has played a bunch of scrubs and the other team has stepped up and played against top-notch opposition. You match them up and you can usually go with that team that's more battle-tested. This particular game, Loyola Chicago, 9-0, taking on San Francisco, who's currently 7-2. They're playing in Milwaukee on Saturday. Loyola's off until this game, so they'll be 9-0. San Francisco's playing or hosting Cal State Stanislaus on Wednesday. Didn't even know they had a school. So I'll go out on a limb and say that the Dons will beat Cal State Stanislaus, and they'll be 8-2 when these teams match up this weekend. And really, San Francisco's only losses, Memphis and Clemson. You got both teams power rated top 80. The Dons power rated 3 to 4 points better than Loyola on a neutral floor. You can see where I'm going here. I do like San Francisco in this game.
Hey, you've been liking San Francisco since we started this show. You've been about high on now, and I agree with you. The Dons are no joke. Remember when St. Mary's and Gonzaga it was an automatic L when they played San Francisco. Boy, how the roles reversed in the past couple of years in San Francisco. So great recruiting, and they bring a nice transfer people into the program. So congratulations to Dons. I like the play. I think it's going to be really good. I'm very curious to see what this number comes out, because I love the way San Francisco plays zone defense when they need to, and they can go man up really quickly to kind of confuse their opponents.
Yeah, USF is battle tested. I mean, they played Boise. I mentioned their losses came against Memphis and Clemson, and Loyola Chicago has played nobody. Princeton was their toughest test yet, and no disrespect to Princeton, but they're outside the top 100 when it comes to power ratings. So it is a step-up game, first of the year for the Ramblers. And if this number is around 4, thereabouts, I think I'm going to have to lay it here with the Dons. They can turn the ball over too much at times. That bothers me a little bit, but I do believe they overcome those issues in this particular game. Our best bets, our money shot in just a moment. Real quick, a recap of what you can do if you're not yet a member at DocSports.com and just want to give it a trial run. You click on the link below the video. You get yourself set up for a free $60 account, and then you can use those free $60 on any of our daily packages over at DocSports.com. And folks, don't forget about the bowls. We do have Army-Navy regular season game, of course, scheduled this Saturday. We've also got a bowl game this Saturday and a few more next week. So there's like no time to rest, no rest for the weary in college football anymore as the Bulls get underway this Saturday. You can all check them out on our homepages at Doc Sports on Thursday afternoon. Money shot, go for it, Raphael. What you got this week?
I'm going to jump back a little bit on the bowls. I play every bowl game. I remember when I first got hired here at Doc Sports, Doc's dad came to me, hey, you know what? There's bowl games. You think you can play on every one to keep the site active? Yeah, sure, I'll do it. And I've been doing it ever since. And I hate myself every day when I'm handicapping the New Orleans Bowl when I should be doing something else. But I love bowl games. I wish there was more. There's 46 of them now this year. It was only in the low 40s last year. I want 50. Why not give us more bowl games? But
why not?
My money shot in college basketball. I wrote this down before the news broke today, and everyone was, what news? What news? No, Jimmy Butler did not get traded yet. The news of BYU. So I had this played down before the breaking news, but Fresno State BYU under 155.5 for tomorrow's game. I just love this BYU defense. Their second biggest total that there's being played is 155. The first one they played was 158, and that one went under versus Queens. Ooh, me and you can probably find 3 other guys to beat Queens, and they blew them out, and the still total went under 158. I just like the way BYU plays defense. They know how to shut people down. They just got a great recruit coming in. Before I wrote this down, Fresno's dropped 4 straight, only averaging 70 points a game in those 4 losses. 2 of those losses were they only scored 66 points. So the momentum of this signing with BYU and the way BYU plays defense, I think this one goes under the total.
Oh, good stuff, Raphael. What you did when you were asked by, Doc Mosman about why don't you just release all the bowl games? We used to call that helium arm back in the day because it was always the guy that would stick his hand in the air and say, yeah, I'll do it. And then he started getting busy. He's like, what did I get myself into? And it's tougher now because you've got all the transfer portals. It's ridiculous. I mean, I can remember when CMC, Christian McCaffrey, just kicked our butts, all of our butts sideways by saying, I'm not going to play in the bowl game in his last year because I'm going to save myself. I don't want to get hurt for the NFL draft. And everybody was like, oh my gosh, how do you handicap this? Oh my, it's now every game you got to deal with transfers, the big portals, you got to deal with coaching changes. We saw, and I'll make it quick here, but we saw, for instance, a good example, the Cal UNLV bowl game in Los Angeles. As soon as it was announced that Barry Odom was gone, taking the Purdue job, don't blame him, by the way, it'd be financially stupid if he didn't. $6 million a year over $1.5 million a year, basically. But the bottom line is when he left, that number in one book was as low as 1.5.
Yep.
It's now as high. I've seen as high as 5 here in Las Vegas. Now, most books don't have it that high, but some do. And that's one of those situations where it's going to happen. And then you're going to start hearing about how many players are transferring, who's following their coach, who's leaving their current program for another. And it really gets crazy. So I'm just going to say I'll be handicapping every game, but I sure am glad I'm not in your shoes. But be sure to send those to me. I'd love to read some of these analysis on these games, make my life easier.
Sometimes it's just through dart, team landed. That's my right.
Good stuff. All right, man, I'm going to go with my best bet or money shot. I'm going to stick with one of the games in today's show, and that's going to be San Francisco minus the points this weekend over Loyola Chicago. Again, we've got 2 teams that aren't power rated very highly, but San Francisco, This is a team that I think deserves to be power rated even higher than they are. They're going to be 8-2. They're going to have a chance to hand Loyola their first loss of the season. And for all the reasons I mentioned earlier, I think they're going to get the job done. Just don't start turning the ball over too much, because I have seen them a couple of times where they'll go through a 6 or 7 minute stretch of game time and turn the ball over 3 times in 4 possessions with 1 shot. That gets a little bothersome, but I still think they come through and win this basketball game. Hey, guys, don't forget, every single Tuesday we are here. It'll be live. You'll be able to chime in if you wish. Thanks to those who chimed in this week. And, of course, you'll be able to watch the recording if you missed any of the live show each and every week, too. And we're going to be doing this throughout the college basketball season, so we're talking into March, several months to go. For Michelle, our producer, who if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have a show. For Raphael Esparza, I'm Scott Spreitzer. We are DocSports.com's In the Paint. You know what to do, everybody. Let's put them in the win column. Talk to you next Tuesday.